Welcome back to another episode of Size Eyes, the life of a long-term multitasker. So this vision, I want to take a look at intuition, among other subjects, but I think intuition is I think I've talked about it before in past episodes, but wanted to dig into a little bit here. I think it's an underrated piece of decision making, of personal growth on a part of the spiritual journey. I think it's underrated in non-personal decisions as well. So like in the business world, in the academic world. And so there's many questions stemming from that, but I think intuition can be looked upon as not scientific, not provable, not creditable to anything, not credible sometimes, and just as a gut feeling, right? But what is that gut? There's way more educated people than me in terms of like what that gut feeling means. But I think it's like some, like the chakra, the chi, the energy that is the center of the body, really, in the pit of the stomach, right? That's why when you breathe, you're getting it from that place in the stomach. It's a life force. And so, I think intuition can be looked down upon sometimes. But I think it's just that's the consensus. How do we turn that around? And so something in the business world. So last year, manager, this was around about a year ago, when COVID was starting to hit the U.S. And my then manager, he was like, "Yeah, I think COVID's gonna be. This is a little thing. It's gonna be done. We'll be over it. The state and the country, in a couple of months." So he's like May, June max of last year. Obviously, that was not correct. I thought it was going to be done. At the beginning of it, I thought it was going to be done. Maybe, later in the year, maybe September, October, something like that. Clearly, I was wrong too. And so, what made him say it's going to be done in May or June? What made me think it's going to be done a little bit later, but still last year? What made other people think that it's not a disease? There's obviously there's a lot of different factors there, but I think part of that is intuition, right? Like we don't know, but where's that voice telling us? Where's that voice coming from? That intuition. It can be that angel. It could be that devil. It could be something in between. That we think we're hearing. That we are hearing. Like why do some people run for office? It's like, hey, God told me to run, and then they lose. Or I mean, losing could have been part of the bigger plan, I guess. But why do some people say that, and then other people hear God in different ways? And so I think everyone's intuition, I think that can be correct for them. That is factually true for them, right? They may have experienced that, and that I think comes down to that. Intuition is experiential and not provable. It's not something that can be taken into a laboratory and tested. At least not that I know of. It's something that has to be experienced. And sometimes we get caught up in stuff that can be proven, or that has to be proven to be correct. Right? There has to be a study on this. There has to be a study on that in order for us to accept something as scientifically true. But can we hear something that may not be true yet and accept it, or at least entertain that thought? And so, I think, so like I was watching Jane Goodall's masterclass on conservatism, and right now she was talking about obviously her study and research all her years and decades in the forests of Africa, studying chimpanzees. And one of the things she said was how even chimps may even have a spiritual side of, I think when she was talking about how it rains and there's like a waterfall, and seeing like how there's water coming from the sky, but then there's also water on the earth, like what's the connection there? That may be, part of how spirituality started, with connecting with nature, as, some of the first gods were the symbols that have represented gods in other traditions and cultures and faiths are, the sun, the moon, the earth, the water, elements like that. And it's a fundamental piece of many, many traditions. And so she was saying how even chimpanzees may have that spiritual side. They may have that intuition to notice, to experience it. And she was saying that to a listener right now, it may seem like it's like, oh, that's not true. Like only humans can do that. But then that's what humans thought. Only humans can have feelings, or the only animals in the animal kingdom that can have feelings, have spirituality, have emotions, make tools, etc. And so that's what we knew then. We know that it's not true anymore. If we assume that everything is true now, then there's no room for learning in the future. And so just want to make that connection with what I've been consuming lately. And on that content consumption train of thought, I used to consume content. I mean, I still do, but to a lesser degree, of just wanting to consuming it for the entertainment value, even though it's educational, kind of tricking myself into thinking it was educational and that I was learning. I was, but then the learning has to be put into practice. And so that's something that, for example, like Jay Shetty's podcast. I don't watch his videos, his quick videos, but the podcast that he interviews people, I watch those, and I've been watching them in order for the most part. And I used to watch it every week, but at some point, there's just so many and so much content, so many lessons in each of those different podcasts, that life lessons that each of the guests have, as well as Jay has, that they share, that it's too much to implement in 1 week and then come back a week later and then try to implement. Learn, first of all, listen carefully, take notes for that, and then implement it in 1 week, and then keep on doing that, because his episodes release every week. There's, and that's just one podcast. There's so many other things that I want to listen to, that I have listened to, have watched, have read, etc. And so I kind of take it now as there are so many options for me. I can't listen to them all. But I trust my intuition on when I need what feels right. On when I need to consume that. When I want to consume it. When my mind, my heart, my gut, whatever you want to call it, that tells me, hey, I'm not feeling this, I'm not feeling that. Like, that is, I need to trust that. And I am starting to trust that more. Of like, hey, it's like I hadn't listened to one of his ones in a while. I think it had been a month plus since I listened to one with Mona and Hudda Cutton with Jay Shetty's podcast. But then the next one was Kobe, so obviously I had a keen interest in that. But it had been a month plus, and I was like, I don't think I'm ready for that. Like, now's not the time. So I was consuming other content. And, finally I started the Kobe one a few days ago. I watched it over the course of 2 days, took notes, etc. And from it, I think the timing was perfect because I realized some things, his approach, the stories that he shared, quotes that he had, experiences that he shared with Jay, and vice versa. That was what I needed to hear at that moment. And I might not have gotten the same message as I would have had I listened to it at some other point. And I chalk that up to intuition. Sure, I might have gotten something else, but I may not have gotten what was best for me in the long run if I listened to it at a different point, either later or earlier. And so, how can I trust that intuition more? I think in the last year, I've listened to myself a little bit more. I will also first, in order to listen to myself more, I need to talk to myself more. Right? I need to block out, and in order to talk to myself more, I need to talk to other people less, listen to other people less. So I think it's, that's one of the good things that's come out of me moving to Charlotte, and obviously out of COVID, essentially, for me personally. It's not, I don't have, as big a social life here in Charlotte, obviously. And with COVID, not seeing as many people, and even if there was COVID, I'm not sure, or if there wasn't COVID, I'm not sure. But been able to spend more time reflecting and talking to myself, obviously out loud and internally, that internal dialogue. But as I've done more meditation, more journaling, more visualization, more type of manifestation, a lot of buzzwords there. I think I've trusted that intuition, the example of when, so yesterday I was opening, so we hadn't found our NutriBullet blender for a couple months, and I hadn't seen it in a while, and we were looking for it all over, but in the meantime I was just using the blender that I normally had for the past few years, and so up until yesterday, I wasn't looking for it actively, except for when we first couldn't find it. And then yesterday I was just normally cooking. I was listening to some podcast, and then, I saw a little green bag, kind of straps, hanging out one of the cupboards, above the fridge. So it's not something that's easily accessible, nor would you put something that you would normally need up there. And so I just kind of opened it. It's like, hey, what's that green bag doing up there? Then I opened the cupboard, and oh my God, I see the NutriBullet. I'm like, oh, wow. Can't believe it was up there all this time. So I'm not sure who put it up there, how it got up there, or when, but we found it, right? So would I persist? It resists. I butchered that one. But the less I tried to actually find it, it just kind of appeared. Kind of same thing for Kobe when he was trying to find the name of his show of detail, right? He knew what he wanted to, generally what the direction he wanted it to take, but he couldn't find the right name, how to frame it. And then one day he was just shopping, and then it just kind of came to him. just like that. And so, there are those epiphany moments, but it's a matter of, are we listening to them? How clear is that signal? And are we tuned into the right frequency? And that comes through practice. That can't just be, one day I reached maximum level of intuition. No, it doesn't work like that. And so I'm continuing to trust myself more. I think the person that I trust myself the most in this world. More than my parents, more than my brother, more than my coworkers, more than my friends, more than my acquaintances, more than celebrities, more than anyone else that I know in this world, other than God. I trust myself the most. How can I continue to lean into that? And how can I tell people, how can I share with people that they should trust themselves the most as well? Like, don't listen to me. This is my journey. And intuition is a big part of it. How can your intuition be as big or bigger part of yourself as it is for me right now, and then hopefully it continues growing? And so, one of the things I heard yesterday when I was consuming something is, there's, we have 24 hours, eight of the hours, for rest, 8 hours for work, kind of to complete your, bodily duties, to go and work, surviving, putting a roof over your head, etc., that type of stuff. And then 8 hours to connect with yourself. So I don't think we spend that much time, maybe sometimes on a weekly basis, but definitely not on a daily basis. So I'm trying to get to that point of how much time am I really spending with myself, where we want to learn about all these external things, about how the world works, about how, the economy, about finance, about the stock market, about psychology, about all these things, but those are all external things. The first and only thing that we had was ourselves. How much do we want to learn about ourselves? And from there, that intuition can come about and be trusted unequivocally. That's one of my affirmations, is I now trust my intuition unequivocally. And so I'm getting there. It's better than it was last year. And I hope I trust it more unequivocally next year as I do now. It's a process. But doing these different things, like I mentioned, can help my intuition be trusted in any situation, to trust myself in any situation. So yeah, I think we'll put a period on it there, about 20 minutes. So yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for listening to another episode of Size Eyes, the life of a long-term multitasker.